Hello, and welcome to the Southcoast Artists Index, where artists, performers, and writers, as well as curators, directors, and supporters, anyone, in fact, with ties to the creative community, drops by to introduce themselves to you. We'll talk about their beginnings, their vision, their passion, and so much more.
Welcome to another episode, another podcast of In Focus. And today's guest is going to introduce himself. He's going to spell his last name, make sure it's all pronounced correctly, because this is for history.
Oh, boy. So I'm permanent. This is going to be on my permanent record.
On your permanent record.
I'm Denn Santoro. That's D-E-N-N, because I never wanted to be a room in a house. Santoro, S-A-N-T-O-R-O. And I'm an artist and a business person here in the city.
What's your primary discipline?
I am a photographer.
You're a photographer.
All fine art photography. I don't do weddings and portrait shots and stuff like that. But I go out on shoots and I shoot performance. I shoot mostly buildings. I shoot dance. I shoot a variety of things, but all in my own signature style. Which once you get to know it, you can tell whether it's a flower you're looking at or whether it's a building.
So we know it's a Santoro when we look at it.
Yes.
How long have you been doing this?
I started photography at about 14, seriously, when I got into high school and got access to a darkroom and a camera. So a long time.
Where'd you go to high school?
I went to Bishop Fian in Attleboro way back in the day when it was a small school. It's now actually grown quite a bit.
Yeah. Was there a photography teacher that was an inspiration to you, or?
No, actually, it was the yearbook. If you joined the yearbook as a photographer, they gave you a camera and a bunch of film and said, go do something. And one of the local photographers, who actually was a weddings and portraits guy, was the sponsor for the, well, not the sponsor, the... God, I'm losing the word here. He took care of teaching you how to do the work in the darkroom and print pictures and things of that
Maybe
sort.
Like the instructor? Or,
Yeah.
Okay.
But it was a volunteer thing. He was just, he was a photographer in town. So I went, and when I volunteered, they gave you a camera and they gave you 3 rolls of film and said, go do what you want and come back. When I came back, we printed contact sheets from the rolls of film I took and came out with the contact sheets, and the photographer looked at them and said, you have a weird eye. I want to work with you.
Really?
Yeah. So I thought, well, that says something. I was 14, so I didn't know exactly what
the heck he meant. Yeah.
What it said, but like the I want to work with you part made sense.
Yeah.
So I learned quite a bit. I basically, he taught me the rules so I could figure out how to break them, and then I kind of went on from there. And I continued to take pictures my whole life, but I knew that I was not likely to be someone who managed to make a good living as a photographer without doing the weddings and stuff. So I pursued other interests as well, and did things that I could make money at while continuing to take pictures. And because I like to take pictures of buildings, I did a lot of traveling because the buildings just won't come to you, and so I did a lot of traveling, took pictures of a lot of buildings.
Were you hired by architects or?
No, I was doing it for myself.
You just got on a plane and said, "I think I'll go shoot."
Well, my job was I started an international consulting company.
Okay.
So I got to do a lot of travel on other people's dimes. I also taught 10 years of grad school for Leslie, and they flew me all over the place to do the teaching, mostly to Wyoming. And so the courses were Friday, Saturday, Sunday, then 2 weeks later, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday was the whole course. So they would fly you out, and they would fly you back, and they would fly you out and fly you back. And a lot of times I took the middle 2 tickets and went somewhere else instead of home. So I got to do a lot of traveling a lot more than one might expect.
Yeah.
Without it costing me a ton of money.
Yeah.
So I got to take a lot of pictures, and I got to go a lot of places, and I realized that I'm not a great landscape photographer. There's a special thing that with landscape photography that some people have, and it didn't fit my style per se. I'm not Ron Wilson or someone like that. But I slowly found, that I had a style, and I was not really happy with everything I was doing until you could see my style, and no matter what my subject matter was. Which took me to about 40, actually.
Really?
And then by then I could do it like anything I took.
Right.
I could tell it was me. And at that point I got serious about getting out into shows and starting to be in galleries and things of that sort. So for the last 20-something years, I've been really serious about like showing and selling and stuff, but I never stopped taking pictures.
Right. Now, I'm assuming that you haven't gone. Assuming you have gone over to the digital side, do you miss the darkroom?
I had access to the darkroom through college, and then very limited access to the darkroom after that. I found that I like the actual work of the darkroom to a certain extent, but I do most of the work in the camera anyway. I always have.
Okay.
I live with the spot meter, and I do all my composition in the camera. Once in a great while, a little bit of cropping, only if there's no way to get the perch that I need to get what I'm seeing. So the darkroom wasn't a big thing for me to miss, but. When I went over to digital, I didn't go over to digital shooting until I found a service that would actually still print them as photographic C-prints.
Okay.
So because I didn't want to go to digital printing. I wanted to go to light on paper, run through chemicals, and the difference that gives you where, you see saturation and you see grain and you don't see pixelation and layering of the colors. So the digital camera gave me the ability to not have to carry multiple camera bodies.
Yeah.
I don't shoot to RAW, I shoot straight to JPEG, and I treat it like it's film. So I set my ISO, I set my settings to be, this is the film I want in the camera right now. But unlike when I used to carry multiple camera bodies, I'm never frustrated by, oh damn, I have that roll of film in my bag, but all cameras have partial rolls in them right now, so I'm not going to waste half a roll of film.
Exactly.
So which oftentimes was a frustration. Right. And occasionally I would actually do that, but rarely, where I would just say, oh well, screw that roll of film. But it's so it's nice now. I get to shoot any film I want, anytime I want, frame by frame. Yeah. And then I send it off to a service, and they basically use the process that we used to use to make slides into prints. Yeah. Where they're shooting a 3-beam laser through the positive onto paper and exposing the paper that way. So you get the true colors. You get and they're printing it. They mostly print on Fuji archival. And their standard prints let me go up to 20 by 30, and I tend to print mostly 16 by 20s and 20 by 30s anyway. So
Fuji sort of took over when Kodak just fell out of everything. Yeah,
Fuji's become one of the big, if you're still looking for emulsified paper, they have a range, but their archival, the Fuji archival matte is probably the most common of them. And I'm looking for my image to make the statement, so it's not about like trying to put it on this kind of paper and make it, the paper do something. It's the image itself.
And there are people who think like, oh, any idiot can take a picture now with the digital cameras and such. But if you really stop and think about it, I mean, for the little I know, because when I was in grad school, I took a photo course and learned about the dodging and burning and all that other stuff, and but I got mesmerized by pinhole photography. I just thought that was the coolest thing. So that's all I paid attention to. Mm-hmm. I don't think I ever made a real good print or anything, but it was just fun building the camera and all those aspects. But then in the 40-something years in marketing and advertising, working with photographers, and watching how each one of them worked so differently. I mean, we would do a lot of interiors and such, and roids, the Polaroids, shooting 8, 10, 12 Polaroids, and just to have that one shot, make sure all the slaves, the flashes are all going in correct sequence. And there was an incredible technical skill that was involved in that. People think, oh, it's just point and shoot. It's just, so there's always been manipulation either prior to the image grabbing or afterwards when you're doing the dodging and burning and enhancing of the stuff,
Yes, well, and now, everybody thinks they're a photographer, and because they've got a cell phone. And not that you can't do good photography on a cell phone, because you can. But it's that is not your main tool. Your main tool is your eye, the way you perceive things, the way you see the world, and the way you capture it. And I mean, I know a lot of people, a lot of photographers, a lot of professional photographers who are very into their equipment. It's like, oh, I have this, and this is, and there's a little bit of that in me, because I focus on equipment that is comfortable in my hand, and where I can handle the buttons in the way I want. Because my process is meter and lock the metering, focus and lock the focus, and then compose and take the shot. So what I metered on may not even be in the shot. What I focused on might not even be in the shot. But the shot, is built from those steps. So I've always focused on cameras with really great spot meters, and because I don't like to run up to something and take a handheld reading. It's really nice if you can do a spot metering, and through your camera.
Right.
So I've been focused on that, so to speak, and I think that it's because of the way I work and the composition that I do, in the camera, it gives my way of seeing the world a different perspective too. Plus, I'm dyslexic, and one of the side effects of my particular form of that, because there's so many different forms,
there are,
is that I can see something and then I can turn it around in my head.
Okay.
So I can look at something and know that if I was over there, it would look like this, or if I moved into this position, it'll look like that.
So almost like abstract space relations, you could unfold the box in your head and refold it, the kind of thing.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's helpful in terms of finding the image that I see, because I see something in my head and then I find it in the camera.
Okay. Is there anybody else that you're aware of that works like you, or has anybody ever said, hey, your work is just like so-and-so, that part I hate?
That part I hate too. Not really. I know a couple of people who, over the years who did all their work in camera, but not the same way I do it. But what they took was what they took. They weren't looking to manipulate it afterwards. But not from the perspective of the process that I use. But it's really kind of an interesting thing as a photographer now, because people will look at a picture of mine on a wall and say, so what camera do you use? Which it first makes me cringe, then makes me laugh, and then makes me tell them this little anecdote. There was a well-known photographer who was invited to a dinner party, and as he walked into the dinner party, the hostess said, oh, you're so-and-so, I love your work, you must have an amazing camera. And he said, thank you, and he went to the dinner party, and at the end of the dinner, and on his way out, he said, thank you, that was an incredible meal, your stove must be awesome.
Yeah. I mean, just to psych somebody, I was like, no, I'm using a Luftwaffe Leica, just to see the look on their face.
Yeah, I mean, I can take a good picture with pretty much any camera you put in my hands, but they all have different restrictions, So I do shoot with my cell phone sometimes. And I've had works in galleries that were shot on my cell phone, because with the printing process I use, I can still go large, But it's a different set of restrictions because, I don't have zoom, I don't have as good a lens, I don't have
Right.
changeable lenses.
Yeah,
I will not zoom my phone.
Yeah.
So when I take something on my phone, either I get to move close enough or far enough away,
Yeah.
or I will sometimes crop. Phone pictures I crop more than
Yeah.
anything else. But what I intended is in there. Just sometimes there's extraneous stuff because
Right.
I couldn't get close enough or something
Yeah.
of that sort.
Yeah. Yeah. And now, how did you transition over to the S&G project gallery?
Well,
But it's just, and the word project is very unique in this area.
yes, it is. Helen Granger, who's my partner, and also an amazing artist, and I had been talking for a while about the art scene in New Bedford. We've both been parts of the art scene. I've been here since the 70s, and she's been here less time. But we were talking about the art scene and people we knew and things that we had done, and I had heard from numbers of artists who work in discrete projects, who work in, not series per se, but art that's about a particular thing, that has a theme to it, has a through line, that it was hard to find places to show that kind of work. And I had the same problem because, I do projects that are, geared around something. I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, I guess. But, and so... just happened to be talking to Jeff Glassman, who owns Hatch Street. The Hatch Street.
So you're another hatchling,
Right.
so
to speak,
heard,
yes,
yes,
except
yeah.
that we're not a studio.
Yeah.
We're the only gallery in the place. But we had... I was talking with him about spaces that he had, and I'd been in many of the studios, and they were all just too big. And I said, if you have any smaller ones, because he was redoing parts of the building at that time. He was just working on the second floor. And he said, well, I do have a space that I was thinking of cutting into a standard size, but the other piece would be too small. I said, no, if you want to make an appointment to show me. He did, and I thought it would be great because it still had the same long walls. It just lost some at the end, and the windows are pointless. You can't show on the windows. And, the door end is, not...
it's behind you when
yeah,
you walk
well,
in.
it's not that many feet of running space,
Right.
So it didn't lose much from a gallery perspective, so we worked out a deal, and I rented it, and we started showing projects by artists who were building project work. So we started off with things like Brooke Mullins Doherty's Biorhythms project, where she had worked for to try and keep herself working while she was trying to get pregnant, while she was pregnant, her first baby, etc. She had assigned herself to make a print every week. And so every week she had made a print for 4 years. So we had 208 prints on the wall. It took up like 12 and a half feet and high, and a grid that ran about 40 feet. It was huge. It took 10 and a half hours to put it on the wall because it had to be in order. It had to be right. But where could she have shown that?
Exactly.
And we had other lots of other shows. I mean, we had Kate Fraser Rigo's Labia project. She had done a couple of pieces that she'd shown at Alice and Wells Gallery, and we saw them there, and we talked to her, and she said, well, it's a much bigger project. And we thought, well, great. So and it's been fun, and it's really helped her launch that project off into other things as well. So we've had a lot of those kinds of where that's all we show. We only show people who are working on projects.
Yeah.
And then we have my work and we have Helen's work, and we both work mostly in projects too. I mean, I work almost exclusively in projects. Helen works mostly in projects. Occasionally she goes off elsewhere, but but she's more versatile than I am. She paints, she does graphite, and charcoals, and sumi inks, and things. I take pictures.
Yeah.
So it's been very interesting to do that and to be a different kind of space. But it's a hard art market here it's a hard art market everywhere. But it's
I wrote an article. I did the research on it. The city of New Bedford specifically, or sometimes it's the South Coast. It's kind of hard. It's like the lines are kind of fuzzy.
Yep.
Greater New Bedford. Let's cover it that way. Which is seems to be an old-fashioned term now. They use that, a grader or whatever. And 4 national, international surveys where we placed in the top percentile. Well, we placed. That's what's important.
Yeah, exactly.
So at Hatch Street alone, there's close to 80, say 70 something, right?
Yeah, it changes all the time, but it's.
And in that article, in fact, I wrote about what was going on with the Argentinian artist, wasn't it?
Right. Yeah. Well, she wasn't Argentinian, but her wife was Argentinian, and she was shooting at the ex-ESMA facility where they held and tortured the disappeared.
Exactly.
In Argentina.
Desaparecidos.
And she spent a lot of time there. She'd worked with a lot of the grandmothers who were trying to find the kids that were stolen.
Right.
And things. So
the ones whose mothers were thrown out of a plane or something.
Yes, exactly. Who were forced to have the baby, and then the mothers were disposed of. So it was an incredible piece of work. It was all about this one place and this one moment in time. And it was kind of, people thought, oh my God, torture and death.
Did people buy artwork? I mean, in general, most of us in the business are all pretty much crying on our beer, if we can even afford beer anymore. But and the premise of, okay, we're on these national, international surveys, and yet, with the exception of you as a project gallery, which is not a traditional gallery, so there's no traditional gallery left, and that was part of the article that I wrote for Artscope magazine. What the hell?
I know. Well, it's interesting because we have had, this is our 3rd season. The last show opens next Saturday, which is Helen's actual. We're bringing her from the back.
Sleepy. What is that called? The sleepy animal. Something in animals and
the talking animals.
The talking animals. Okay, there was another show about sleepy animals. Okay, this is the talking animals. Talking animals.
And she's been doing them, for years. But she had this whole bunch of them that were kind of backlogged, and so she decided she's going to do this chunk of work, and we're going to put that show up front. That's the last show of the season. But we've had 3 seasons of shows, and we've had now we are not open all winter because winter is tough for a place that doesn't have walk-through traffic. But we do openings, we do closings, we do private viewings, and we have sold work from every show we have had.
Okay, so my question was, some of these projects are, for lack of a better term, weird or highly emotional or a little icky, and you actually sell work.
Yes, we have sold, but we haven't sold enough.
Is it because it's provocative?
I think it's because the concept of what we're doing gets people in the door. People see the work and realize that some of it is provocative. Don Wilkinson called us the political gallery in town, which is not entirely untrue.
No, but Don's got a good grasp.
Well, we
things,
had the show, the Labia series, which certainly is a political statement. As funny as it was, it's
it's serious stuff.
Yeah, we had the disappeared, Memory and Injustice, show. We do have shows that are certainly have a political bent to them, and we don't shy away from that. So some people, they're pulled in for that reason. But when you get people to actually see art right in front of them, oftentimes they do fall in love with it. And if you've seen a big project and you understand the whole concept, I think you're more likely to be able to pick a picture that to you represents the whole project.
It's a piece of something. It's a part of something versus
and it captures it in a way that you can feel a love for.
Right.
And so I think it's partly that. It's, to me, it's amazing that we've managed to have a streak for 3 years where every show sold work. Now, some more than others, and we are not selling enough to make money, which is a big problem. Because I can't keep working this hard and paying to do it.
Yet all of us, and I mean, if we're just talking about 80 plus at Hatch, and God knows how many others scattered about, and this is sort of a commercial break. The reason, the part and parcel for creating the Artist Index is to find out who you are, where you are, what you do, how long you've been doing it. Are you emerging? Are you established? Are you emeritus? Emeritus meaning towards the end of your career, or pretty much the old man, old lady of painting and sculpture or whatever. But we're covering visual, performing, and literary arts.
Oh, great.
Because I know there's a lot of us out there, and how the heck are we surviving? Because after 40 years of working in marketing and advertising, I can't market myself. I proved that several times over, because I'm too close. It's like trying to look at my back. It's almost impossible. Looking through a mirror doesn't work. Okay, to use that analogy. But when I started working for Artscope magazine, and when I visited you at the S&G Project Gallery at the Hatch Street Studios, all of a sudden the light went on. That now my marketing part of my brain, my experience, and my artist side is like, oh my God, there's an art industry. What makes it chug? What makes how many people come in, how many people go out, how much is produced, how much is sold, how much is backlogged? Because supposedly there was a report that the creative industry as a whole is almost as profitable as the agricultural industry, which is kind of bizarre when you stop and think about that. I don't know if it was that, I can't remember, but it was like a major economic driver. And I'm like, well,
yeah, I'm not seeing that myself.
Yeah.
I mean, we are selling art, and I mean, my own art sells some, not enough. Helen's art sells some, not enough.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And and we do get it out to show people, but there's a lot of models that try and undervalue or devalue artists. The whole you can show for exposure on our walls, thing, which is
You're also a musician, right?
I'm a musician, yeah, right. And I would, we don't do that as a musician either.
Come and play at our benefit. You'll get a lot of exposure.
Yeah, right. Well, and it's that, the first question when somebody asks that is, well, what can I buy with exposure at your establishment, Second question is, will you sell it through your cash register so that people can, can be sitting there and say, I love that. There's a price on it, and they can get it, and it'll be on their bill when they check out, Most places won't do that.
Yeah.
They should. It's no harder than selling a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
But most places, they want free wallpaper.
Yeah.
And we're trying to fight against that. Then there's the whole art auction thing. And I mean, I could go on for hours on this, but artists can only write off what the value of the materials are if they donate something. And the whole concept of the art auction in most instances is designed to make people think they can get expensive art at cut rate prices, which devalues the art.
Again.
And I've been working to try and get people to understand, well, what you need to do is price the art in the auction as it's a reasonable cut. It's the price, the bottom bid is approximately what the art would be worth. Artists should have a gallery split with an auction, or the auction should find someone to buy the art and have the person who bought the art donate it, so the artist can take the write-off of the value, not the cost of materials.
Exactly.
There's other ways to do it too, but there are ways to do it that screw artists, and there are ways to do it that don't. The ones that don't are much harder than the ones that do, but they also don't undervalue art. But we have to teach the artists too. I mean, one of the things we should be doing is talking to them about this stuff while they're in undergraduate programs. And it's not, that so far the business of art stuff that I have seen is about how you do accounting. Well, I think they also need to think about how you do business.
Exactly.
And that's a very different thing. And I mean, yeah, sure, you need to be able to handle your accounting. You need to be able to write checks. But,
Right.
But you also need to think of yourself as a business, and that you can't give everything away, and you can't say, well, my stuff is of no value, or I can lower the value because you're a good cause. There are ways for everybody to win, and what we need to do is be teaching everybody how everybody can win.
Yeah.
And it can be done. We also do, I mean, the gallery, we have another piece of us, which is actually from the accounting perspective, a separate company, which is S&G Project Galleries Art Brokerage. And what we try and do there is get companies, offices like this, and, we did a big job for the Bristol County Savings Bank in their renovation of the Candle Works, and we're talking with other people about projects where we put local artists in their collection. And I don't mean on the wall temporarily. I mean, they buy it, they get it framed, they get it mounted properly, it goes up on the wall, and they own it.
It becomes part of their collection.
It becomes part of their collection. The artist gets paid. We work some things out, and I do it so that the artist is getting their, normal, reasonable price for their piece of work. Minus a commission, the people who are doing the framing and matting and mounting, or reproduction in cases of reproduction, are getting paid, and providing discounts to the artists and discounts to the service, but they're getting these larger jobs, so suddenly they're making money because they're doing a lot of work all in a small period of time, and I'm able to put it together in a way where the people who are buying the art are getting a good deal, the people who are selling the art are getting paid their normal rate, people who are doing the work are getting paid, and I'm getting commission and curation fee in the process. That has been profitable, which is a good thing. So whether the gallery makes it or not, the brokerage will continue because it's a separate piece.
Right. And the brokerage is needed. I mean, fishermen can go, it's just a, off the cuff analogy, can go out and fish. But it's a lot easier if they give their fish to someone to sell for them, so they can continue to do what they do best, which is fish, not sell fish.
Right.
And that is a thing that still intrigues the heck out of me. And what you're doing is very much needed. I mean, in some cases, okay, let's face it. If one artist, for example, if you are able to broker one artist because this corporate entity, they're putting up a headquarters or whatever, or a satellite facility, and they want artwork, but they particularly like one artist alone. Well, they're selling in volume. So there has to be obviously some give in the negotiations, because now you're selling practically your whole inventory out. And
sure.
What are you going to do? Hang on to it? Because it's not going to...
Yeah, no. I mean, most people would rather have it out on the wall, even having discounted it, to some extent. But you don't discount a single piece. You discount, a volume.
Exactly,
sale.
a volume. Yeah.
Just like anything.
Right.
I mean, if you're buying a fleet of cars for your rental, company, you get a better deal than if you're buying one car for your Uber.
Exactly.
So there are ways to look at it, but and. I'm approached often by people saying, well, we'd love to have you, put some work up in our space, and I'm like, well, how much do you want to buy? And they're like, no, we're just offering you walls. And I'm like, yeah. Well,
walls are free everywhere.
Well, it's like you got walls, but we need to sell this. Or, the artists need to make money. It's not, it's not free storage. So, I tell them, look, you have to have it professionally hung. That costs money. You have to insure it while it's there. That costs money. You have to decide how long it's going to be there. You probably need to rent it from the artist. No, it's not the same as buying it, but you probably need to rent it from the artist because they need to get compensated. At the very least, you need to pay them to bring it over and work on the hanging, bare minimum. And then when you're ready to make show 2, you got to clean the walls, you got to take it all down, you got to get it back to the artist, you got to get the next one in and do it all over again.
The simplest things are actually more complicated than
and how long before that costs more than having bought the art in the first place?
Exactly.
So, and I know there are places, that prefer to have, local emerging artists, show and have stuff rotate off their walls. But that doesn't mean don't sell it, and it doesn't mean that, because if you're talking about showing an emerging artist and something sells, well, you can call them up. I bet you they got something to put on the wall where that was hanging, that's not a problem, and we're happy to coordinate that too. But again, the artist has to make some money. It can't be. It can't be just well, it makes my walls pretty, and we tell people who the artist is and give them your contact information, and you can leave a stack of cards there. And if people want to, because people don't make that extra step of calling the artist and saying, oh, there was that piece in such and such a coffee shop, and we'd like to buy it. That doesn't really happen.
No.
I don't know anybody that's ever happened to. On the other hand, when the coffee shop or the restaurant has it there for sale, I've seen those come off the wall. Because you can put it on your check.
Yep.
You're sitting there with a meal or a beer and a credit card, and you fall in love with this thing, and it's
boom, instant sale.
Right, and it goes through the cash register. Well, the cash register is set up to take sales tax. The cash register only needs to have one other item on it, art from the wall.
Yep.
And then you just put a note, what piece, and who the artist was. The number, what it sold for goes in as the sale. Sales tax gets calculated, and you just treat it as another item you sold.
Yeah.
And then you pay the artist, and I'm totally comfortable with people saying, well, it went through a credit card, so we need to take the credit card fee. Right. Sure, no problem. You keep the sales tax too. But then the artist doesn't have to worry about that.
Exactly.
But still, you had a sale. The artist had a sale.
Yeah.
And if you want to build a small commission into it for your own purposes, because there's work involved.
I mean, there are buyers, which are, to me, are casual buyers. They see something, it's within a price range, which could be, it varies, under $100, under $250, under $500. These aren't people who are going to go into four figures or more. Excuse me. And then there are collectors.
Right.
You just don't run into those. I mean, we happen to know one guy who has like a massive collection. Once again, I'm going to get him on this show, Dr. Richard Connor. He's an evolutionary biologist.
Yep.
He has an art collection, a personal art collection that would choke a horse. And then he has, we've discussed this, the dark side of all of this, where you have artists who are emeritus. I mean, they've gone on, they're in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and they've passed away, and they've left trailer loads of work, unsold work.
Unsold work, absolutely.
And if they have family, the family's like, is this worth anything? What do I do with it? I can't afford the storage. So we have...
And no access to how to move it along and sell it.
Exactly. So now we have this, what I call an art lake. It's a lake, this imaginary lake that's filling up with artworks that go unsold. So bringing us back to the present day-to-day here, why aren't artists in one of the most creative cities in the United States, 4 times over, selling the kind of work that you would expect them to sell, or having the kind of sales that you would expect them to have?
We all bang our heads.
80-20?
We all bang our heads about that. It's a few artists have broken out, but they're not mostly making their sales here in town.
That's the 80-20.
Yeah.
A majority of 80% of my sales are from away.
Yep. And we all try and show in a larger region. And I mean, I worked with another artist that we did a show that was a kind of a conversation between our two art pieces. She was painting in grayscale at the time, and I was taking color photography, and it toured, and we sold some work in various locations, but not the 2 shows we did here. It's my one of my theories has to do with perceived value. That perceived value is in directly inverse proportion to your distance from where the artist is.
Say that one more time.
Your perceived value is in direct inverse proportion to where the artist is. So the farther away the artist comes from, the more valuable the piece appears to you.
That is crazy bizarre. But then again, it's like you don't appreciate what's under your own nose.
Yes, but it's in my experience, it's true, and it's true for a couple of other things too. I mean, it's true for perceived expertise. When I was teaching grad school, in various locations in the country, the farther I was from Cambridge, the more they thought I was amazing.
Oh, the more you pay, the more it's worth. It's Donnie McLean, the auctioneer, about this little boy who goes to an auction with 50 cents in his pocket, whatever it is, and he buys this old nag. To him, it was a beautiful stallion, a beautiful steed. And the gallery and the auctionists are laughing at him, and it's, as the auctioneer said, the more you pay, the more it's worth. So for that little boy, that was his life savings.
Yeah, it's true. And we get a lot of people who really love the art. We get tons of people who have come through the gallery go, this is just beautiful, and they leave without buying anything. Not even sometimes the prints, which are inexpensive reproductions of the original pieces. But they don't take it home. And I understand. I fall in love with a lot of art. If I bought as much art as I fall in love with, I would be broke, and I would need a house the size of Richard Connor's for the collection.
Yeah.
But it's it's one of those things where it's hard to know what gets people over that threshold where they pull the trigger and actually pull out their card, and say, I am going to buy that.
I mean, I think it's socioeconomic. It's cultural and socioeconomic. You come from a background where this is what you do. You buy art. Why? Because you like it. Why? Because I can afford it. Why? Because I like it.
Well, yeah, but we also have mistaken perceptions about some of these things. I mean, you can go to a dinner and drop $100 on two people and have a wonderful meal, and go home, and that was it. You can go to our gallery and spend $100 on a piece of art and live with it the rest of your life. Which is more valuable? Well, people much more readily go out to dinner.
The instant gratification.
Yeah, or their perception of the value, and also people are much more well trained to go out to dinner than they are to go look at art. And they think they need to know something special. They think, I don't know anything about art. Well, do you know what you like?
I get that as an abstract painter. I get that. I'd have to go back to school to understand what you're doing. No, you wouldn't. I mean, I've had little kids come up to me and know exactly what I'm doing, which is kind of really cool.
Sure.
I mean, I forgot where it was. It was a gallery. This woman came in with her children. She asked the gallerist if it was okay, and she's like, yeah. And then they left, and I came in later, and they said, wow, you are a hero. I was like, why? I just walked in here. And she says, no, there was this woman with her little children, and the little kids fell in love with your painting and wanted to know all about you and how you did it and everything like that. And it was like...
Yeah. And, it's not that you need to necessarily, quote unquote, understand what you're seeing. You need to have a reaction to it. You need to fall in love with it, or
sometimes it's straight out visceral.
It can be just the gut reaction you have to it. I mean, you're an abstract person. I'm not. I don't gravitate towards abstract art, which is funny because I take a lot of it. But
I was gonna say you're.
But it's not that I don't ever like it or buy it or
right.
But when I'm looking at a piece of abstract art, I'm not looking for what does it mean, what does it say, what can I see in it, although sometimes that stuff jumps out at me. I look at a piece of abstract art and ask myself, how would it make me feel? You know, am I drawn to it? Does it make me feel comfortable? Does it make me feel agitated? Does it, you know, do I like it in some way, or do I not like it in some way? What's my reaction?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it does speak to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was going someplace to try to, you know, open some doors, and I walked into a gallery, which I knew was there, but I was stunned by what I saw. In fact, I'm writing an article on it. The name of the artist is Jack Wolf. And I was just so stunned by his work. And I had the pleasure of interviewing his widow. And she brought out his abstract pieces. What he had to show was more representational. And I looked at his abstract pieces. I could swear that this deceased artist was in the room with me, because I could feel every brushstroke that this man did. I understood totally what he was doing. It was the weirdest thing. I was either in his head or he was in my head. It was kind of a spiritual thing. And if I had the wherewithal, yes, I would have forked over cash right there for a piece of his work.
Sure.
And so there are a lot of reasons why people buy art. Some people buy it for an investment, which is really a wrong reason, because you never know who's going to rocket up in the fame and who's not.
No, you should buy art to live with it, not to invest in it.
Exactly. And it's okay if it matches your drapes and your sofa.
Totally okay. And it's also okay if it does appreciate in value. Some art does, you know, it's hard to know whether that's going to happen or not. But the important thing is that while you've got it, you love it.
Exactly.
You know.
Exactly.
And it's also okay to have a collection that's bigger than the walls you have available to show it. You just recurate every once in a while, you know. Put a couple pieces in the closet, pull a couple pieces out, and stick them up on the walls.
That's my wife's philosophy completely. That's the only way, you know, unless we buy like a mansion of, you know, with 60 rooms in it. That's the only way we're going to ever show all the pieces that we have is by, and it's also good for you because your environment changes and it's good for your headspace because you start noticing things you didn't notice before, and it's a great refreshment thing. So finally, the art industry, to wrap this up, the art industry, because that's what it is. Where do you see it going specifically in New Bedford? I mean, we've made so many great leaps forward as a city. We're cleaning ourselves off, dusting ourselves off, you know. Where do you see things going?
You know, I'm really unsure. From the conversations I've had with people this year, especially about, you know, why sales have fallen off and things of that sort, because that has happened this year for not just me.
No.
You know, people are unsure about whether it's a reaction to the economy or politics or, you know, the uncertainty in the world, or whether we've just hit another plateau and we're going to be bumping along on it for a while, which in my experience of New Bedford, we climb and then we plateau for a while. And sometimes it's a year, sometimes it's several. And then we climb some more and then we plateau for a while. So my gut feeling is we're hitting a plateau. That we've climbed up to a certain level, and we need to figure out how to take that next step. I mean, there's a lot of things that have come in, you know, with the City Arts Fund and the Bar Foundation money and things of that sort. And for the most part, that's going to the arts organizations, which is not the same as going to the artists. And I don't have a real problem with that, but I think they really need to think seriously about how to drive more of that money to the artists themselves.
Right.
Because artists that aren't making money are not making art.
Exactly. And if you know, again, back to the accolades and the status that we have as most creative city, this, that, and the other, that's all great. We know it. But who beyond us, who else away from here knows this? I think the next step is to create a mecca of some sort here for people to come here. And Art Basel, I mean, basically it was a flea market and then it became a flea market for rich people. It's still a flea market because, you know, the way it's set up, it's like you see it, you bid on it, you grab it because it'll be gone. So there's this incredible immediacy. And then it became a very posh kind of a thing to do. So people were buying stuff. You go to a carnival and you weren't even thinking of cotton candy until you see a couple of kids walk by enjoying cotton candy, and you go, I think I'll have a cotton candy. So we really have to stimulate that. I mean, it is a commodity, like it or not.
Yeah,
it is a commodity.
And we try and do some of those things. For example, the the open studios that we do at Hatch Street every year, which this year is the weekend before Thanksgiving, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And we do things with our, like we have openings and closings and private viewings at the gallery. Our next opening is Helen's show, which is Saturday the 26th, and it's also a costume party, although costume's not required, but it'll be fun.
Yeah.
And you see all of these events geared to bring people in.
Right.
And with the openings, it's one thing, you get
the same 20.
Well, to some extent, we get new people, and we hope that we do a lot of social media, and artists bring their friends and stuff as well.
Right.
So we see different people. Although I have to say that this year we have not seen many of our regular audience, which is kind of weird to us. But when you have the open studios, a lot of the stuff that sells are like the greeting cards and the small, inexpensive prints. Because there's a certain level of people who are coming to see the art, and another group of people, much smaller, who are looking to find a deal on some art. And then there are people who are going to the zoo. It's like, oh, let's go see the artists in their natural habitat. And which is also fine, I mean, it's as good a reason as any, because at least maybe you'll talk to the artist and learn some stuff about, some art and that artist and the stuff that you like and where you can find the stuff you like, and maybe you'll become an art buyer. But maybe it'll be demystified for you, and it's really okay. We want to demystify it. We don't want people thinking, art, it's a specialized thing. I can't know anything about it. It's not rocket science. Nobody's going to die if you go to an opening. And nobody's going to ask you, do you understand that? They might ask you what you think of it. In which case, whatever you say is just fine, because what you think of it is what you think of it.
Exactly. It's the viewer's share.
Exactly. And we want to know that. We want to know how people react to our work. We're not looking for, this reminds me of, such and such an artist, and, this school and that. It's like, how does it make you feel?
Yeah, exactly. All right, so to wrap this up, give us a little bit of a commercial, your contact information, which we will have on the page where this podcast will be poised. But just give us a little bit of information.
Okay, well, I can be reached at densantoro.photo.com. You can find my email there. And I also have an Instagram account where I tend to play in my Instagram account. Some of it is stuff that's like partially my real work, but most of it is stuff playing on my way to some of the real stuff, or just things I see in my normal travels that I take, from a weird angle. So you can find my stuff there, and you can see where I'm showing outside of the gallery. The gallery is S&G Project Gallery, the words, so the letter S, the word and, the letter G, projectgallery.com. We also have a Facebook and an Instagram account, and you can see a lot of the shows we've done. And we have, like I said, Helen's show coming up, opening next Saturday. And that'll be up through the Open Studios weekend, and then there'll be some holiday sales.
The Open Studios, I believe, is November 22nd, 23rd.
It's the weekend before
24th.
Thanksgiving. It's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday before Thanksgiving. So dates, because they're always about the same dates, so I get them confused. But I know it's the weekend before.
I'm just trying to make it contemporary, because if this thing is listened to in a year,
from now, 2019. But so you can always find me and what I'm doing at the Denn Santoro Photo. S&G Project Gallery is what we're showing. I always have work up, and Helen always has work up as well. And all of our inventory is there. And then we show various other locations. We're the group called SNAC, Southern New England Artist Community,
Right.
that shows around in various galleries. Helen and I both get into shows. We get invited or ask our way into shows in
Right,
a variety of places.
Right.
I just this summer had 2 shows over in one in Pawtucket and one in East Providence.
Right.
So there, we get the work around.
Right.
We want to sell it.
Yeah.
We want people who are listening.
Yeah,
to
I don't
this.
like when it comes back.
Yeah, we want people who are listening to this come see and come by.
Yeah.
It's people think, all art is expensive, but it's not. We have stuff in our gallery for $15. We have stuff in our gallery for hundreds. And occasionally for thousands.
Yeah.
But you can literally take home a piece of art to put on your wall for $25, $50, $60 if
Right.
you want something that you fell in love with. So come see it.
Great. Thank you so much, Dan. Much appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And let's get the word out there.
All righty.
Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks.
You've entered the archives of history.
Oh, there you go.